During a party in a mansion, the waitress froze when she saw the photo of her daughter's father in a black frame. What the millionaire said left her speechless. Elena Hart adjusted her black waitress uniform for the 10th time that evening. Her hands trembled slightly as she balanced a silver tray of champagne flutes, weaving through Savannah's elite gathered in the grand Lancaster mansion. The crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light across the marble floors, a stark contrast to the cramped apartment where her 6-year-old daughter Grace waited with a neighbor. "Keep it together," she whispered to herself. "Just 3 more hours." This extra catering gig meant everything. Another $200 toward Grace's mounting medical bills. Another small dent in the mountain of debt that grew with each specialist appointment, each new medication for her daughter's congenital heart condition. Elena plastered on her professional smile as she approached a cluster of women draped in designer dresses and family heirlooms worth more than her annual income. Champagne ladies. They barely acknowledged her as they selected glasses from her tray, continuing their conversation as if she were invisible. Elena was used to it. In these circles, service staff were like furniture, necessary but unnoticed. "I still can't believe it's been a whole year since David's passing," said a woman with silver-streaked hair. "Eleanor is incredibly strong to host this memorial." Elena froze, the name sending an unexpected chill down her spine. David. A common name, she reminded herself. Not her David. Not the man who had disappeared 7 years ago when she'd worked up the courage to tell him about her pregnancy. She moved mechanically toward the next group of guests, her mind wandering to memories she'd tried to bury. David Lane. At least that was the name he'd given her. 8 passionate months together. Whispered promises of a future. And then, nothing. A disconnected phone number. A non-existent address. As if he'd been a ghost all along. The grand hallway of the Lancaster mansion opened into a lavish drawing room where guests mingled beneath portraits of generations of Lancasters. Elena's eyes swept across the space, automatically identifying empty glasses that would need collecting. That's when she saw it. On an ornate mahogany table adorned with white roses and candles, sat a black-framed photograph with a mourning ribbon. Elena's heart lurched painfully against her ribs. The champagne glasses on her tray clinked as her hands began to shake uncontrollably. The face in the photograph was unmistakable, though he looked thinner than she remembered, his eyes hollow with something she hadn't recognized during their time together. David, her David. The world seemed to slow down, sounds becoming distant and muffled. Without realizing what was happening, Elena felt the tray slipping from her grasp. The crash of crystal against marble echoed like a gunshot through the room. Conversation stopped abruptly. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Elena stood paralyzed, champagne pooling around her sensible black shoes, shards of crystal glittering like diamonds at her feet, but she couldn't look away from the photograph. "My dear, are you all right?" The voice cut through Elena's shock. A striking woman in her mid-50s approached, her silver hair styled in an elegant chignon, her posture regal despite the concern in her deep brown eyes that looked hauntingly familiar. I'm so sorry about the glasses," Elena stammered, finally tearing her gaze away from the photograph. "I'll clean this up right away." "Never mind the glasses," the woman said, placing a gentle hand on Elena's arm. Her fingers were adorned with a single platinum wedding band and a sapphire ring that caught the light. "You've gone completely pale." Elena couldn't help herself. Her eyes darted back to the photograph, and a small, choked sound escaped her throat. "That man," she whispered. "I knew him. He was..." The older woman's grip tightened slightly on Elena's arm. Her eyes, David's eyes, widened almost imperceptibly. "Come with me," she said quietly, guiding Elena away from the curious stares of the guests, with a small gesture to the catering manager, who rushed over to handle the broken glass. She led Elena through the crowd and down a hallway to a private study. The room was warmly lit with walnut paneling and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. The woman closed the door behind them, muffling the sounds of the gathering. "I'm Eleanor Lancaster," she said. "David was my son." Elena sank into a leather armchair, her knees suddenly too weak to support her. "But that's not possible," she said. "His name was David Lane. He told me he was a business consultant who traveled frequently." Eleanor's face softened with a sad understanding. Lane was his middle name, David Lane Lancaster. She moved to a small bar cart and poured 2 fingers of amber liquid into crystal tumblers. offering one to Elena. "I think we both need this." Elena accepted the glass but didn't drink. "I don't understand. Why would he lie about who he was, and why is there a memorial for him, is he?" "David died a year ago today," Eleanor said, her voice steady despite the pain that flashed across her face. "Car accident on Highway 17. The room seemed to tilt around Elena. Dead. David was dead. The father of her child. The man she had searched for desperately when she discovered she was pregnant. The man she had both loved and hated for years. Was gone forever. "Tell me," Eleanor said, sitting across from Elena, her voice gentle but insistent. "How did you know my son?" Elena looked down at her hands, still clutching the untouched whiskey. "We met at a coffee shop downtown, about 7 years ago. I was working there while taking night classes at Savannah Tech. He would come in every morning, always order the same thing. We started talking, and then..." She trailed off, memories flooding back with painful clarity. "You were involved," Eleanor finished for her. Elena nodded. "For 8 months. He told me he traveled for work, which explained why he would disappear for days sometimes. But then, 7 years ago, he vanished completely. Phone disconnected. The address he gave me didn't exist." She swallowed hard, finally raising her eyes to meet Eleanor's. "I was 3 months pregnant." Eleanor's tumbler slipped from her fingers, whiskey splashing onto the Persian rug below. "Pregnant," she whispered, her composure cracking. "David had a child. A daughter," Elena said. "Her name is Grace. She's 6 years old." Eleanor pressed a hand to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "I have a granddaughter," she said, her voice barely audible. "All this time, and I never knew. Mrs. Lancaster, there's something else you should know," Elena continued, her voice breaking. "Grace was born with a congenital heart condition. We've been struggling with treatments her whole life. That's why I'm working extra jobs like this one, to pay for her medical bills." Eleanor's eyes widened with horror. "A heart condition? What type exactly?" "The doctors call it hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It affects the heart muscle, makes it harder for her heart to pump blood." Elena's brow furrowed at Eleanor's reaction. "Why does that mean something to you?" Eleanor closed her eyes briefly as if steeling herself. "I need to show you something," she said, rising from her chair and moving to the desk. She unlocked a drawer and removed a worn brown leather journal. "I found this among David's things 6 months after he died, I think. I think you need to read what's inside." She handed the journal to Elena, whose hands trembled as she accepted it. "It's time you learned why my son disappeared from your life," Eleanor said softly, "and why your daughter's heart condition may be more significant than you realize." Elena stared at the worn leather journal in her hands, her fingertips tracing the initials embossed on its cover. D.L.L. She looked up at Eleanor, whose face was now a mask of composed grief. "I've read it cover to cover," Eleanor said softly, "but I think you should see his words for yourself." With trembling hands, Elena opened the journal. The handwriting was unmistakably David's, the same script that had signed countless love notes and birthday cards during their time together. She flipped through the pages until she found an entry dated 7 years ago, just days before he vanished from her life, March 15, 2018. "Dr. Richardson confirmed my worst fears today. The tests don't lie. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, the same disease that took Dad. Aggressive form, 5 years, maybe less. How do you process a death sentence at 29? Everything I've worked for, everything I've planned. Suddenly, there's an expiration date on it all." Elena's breath caught in her throat. "He was dying," she whispered. Eleanor nodded silently, gesturing for her to continue reading. March 20th, 2018. "I can't tell Elena. God, just thinking about her face when she hears this news. I can't bear it. She mentioned needing to talk about something important tomorrow. I have a terrible feeling I know what it is. The timing couldn't be worse. How can I tell a woman I love that not only am I dying, but that any child we might have could inherit this ticking time bomb in my chest?" The words blurred as tears filled Elena's eyes. She blinked them away and continued reading. March 21st, 2018. "I saw it in her eyes tonight. That special kind of nervous excitement. She wants to tell me she's pregnant. I'm sure of it. I watched her touching her stomach when she thought I wasn't looking. A baby, my baby. A child who might inherit this disease." A child who would watch me deteriorate and die before they even reach middle school. I can't do it. I can't condemn Elena to being my nurse, watching me waste away. I can't condemn an innocent child to either losing their father or worse, inheriting this curse. The kindest thing, the only thing, I can do is disappear, make a clean break. Let her hate me for being a typical man who ran when things got serious. That pain will heal faster than watching me die slowly. Mother will never forgive me for this deception, but it's better this way. Elena looked up at Eleanor, who was watching her with tears streaming silently down her patrician face. He lied about his identity, Elena said, her voice hollow. So I couldn't find him. He used his middle name and his grandmother's maiden name, Eleanor confirmed. Created a whole false identity. I had no idea until I found the journal. Elena turned back to the journal, flipping forward several years. The handwriting had grown shakier, less controlled. January 4th, 2023. 5 years since my diagnosis. I've outlived Dr. Richardson's initial prognosis, but the symptoms are getting worse. I think about Elena every day, about the child that might have been. Was I right to leave? The loneliness is crushing. Would it really have been worse to have spent these years with the woman I loved? I hired a private investigator last week just to find out if she's okay. If there really was a child, I need to know before I... Elena's hands shook so violently that she almost dropped the journal. He tried to find us. Eleanor nodded, taking a small sip of her whiskey. The PI discovered you had moved twice, changed your name back to your maiden name for your daughter's birth certificate. By the time they were getting close, it was too late, Elena finished, feeling oddly hollow. She flipped to one of the final entries. April 30th, 2023. Harmon thinks he's found her. Elena Hart, living across town with a daughter, Grace, 6 years old. The timing matches. My daughter. I have a daughter I've never met. Doctor says another month, maybe 2 at most. Not enough time. Not nearly enough. I've updated my will. Everything goes to them if Harmon can confirm. I hope someday she understands why I left. That it wasn't for lack of love, but because of it, I was a coward. I should have let her choose. The last entry was dated just a week later. The handwriting was barely legible, as if written with extreme effort. May 7th, 2023. No more time. Heart failing. Harmon still searching for confirmation. Too late for me to meet them. Mother will find them. Make things right. Tell my daughter I loved her before I even knew she existed. Elena closed the journal, a complex storm of emotions swirling within her. Anger, grief, understanding, all competing for dominance. He died 2 days after that entry, Eleanor said quietly. The car accident happened because he had a cardiac event while driving. All these years, Elena whispered. Nah, I thought he just didn't want us, that he was a coward who ran when things got serious. He was a coward, Eleanor said with surprising frankness, but not in the way you thought. He should have let you decide, should have told you the truth. Elena's mind raced with implications. Grace's heart condition. It's the same as his. Eleanor's face grew grave. I suspect so. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is often hereditary. David inherited it from his father, my husband, who died at 45. The doctors have been treating her symptoms, Elena said, panic rising in her voice. They never mentioned it could be genetic. I didn't have any family history to report. This changes everything, Eleanor said, setting down her glass. The Lancaster family has access to the world's top cardiologists. We have a foundation dedicated to researching this very disease, established after my husband's death. Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes intense with purpose. I want to help Grace, not just with standard treatments, but with the experimental procedures our research foundation has been developing. Procedures that weren't ready in time to save my son but might save my granddaughter. I can't afford experimental treatments, Elena said automatically. Insurance barely covers the basics. Money is not an issue, Eleanor replied firmly. David left everything he had to you and Grace. Elena stared at her in disbelief. What? Eleanor reached into the desk drawer again and pulled out a legal document. His will was very specific. To Elena Hart and the child I abandoned, if such a child exists, I leave my entire estate. We've been searching for you for a year. That's impossible, Elena said, shaking her head. Why would he? Because regardless of his misguided decisions, my son loved you, Eleanor said simply, and he wanted to make things right, even if he couldn't be here to do it himself. The weight of these revelations pressed down on Elena like a physical force. 7 years of struggling, of working multiple jobs, of stretching every dollar for Grace's treatments, while all this time, a fortune had been waiting for them. I need to see my daughter, Elena said suddenly, standing up. I need to get back home. Of course, Eleanor said, also rising. But Elena, please, I want to meet her. My granddaughter. Would you allow that? Elena looked at this elegant, grieving woman, a stranger who was suddenly family. She thought of her daughter, fighting a disease that had already claimed 2 generations of men she'd never known. Yes, Elena finally said. But first I need to process all this. It's overwhelming. Eleanor nodded, understanding. Take my card. Call me when you're ready. She pressed a business card into Elena's hand. And Elena, I know this is a lot to take in, but please don't wait too long. If Grace's condition is what we fear it is, time may be precious. The words sent a chill through Elena's heart. She clutched the journal to her chest like a shield. I'll call you tomorrow, she promised, already moving toward the door, desperate for fresh air, for the comfort of her daughter's presence, for a chance to make sense of how completely her world had just been upended. Mommy, is she a real princess? Elena smiled down at Grace, smoothing her daughter's dark curls. Curls that, she now realized with a pang, were identical to David's. No, sweetie, she's your grandmother. Like in the stories, the ones about the daddy I never met. Elena knelt before her daughter, adjusting the collar of Grace's best dress, a pale blue cotton thing bought on clearance last summer, now slightly too small. She'd spent the morning washing and ironing it, wanting Grace to look her best, then immediately feeling resentful about caring what Eleanor Lancaster thought of them. Yes, exactly like that. She's your daddy's mommy. Grace's eyes, David's eyes, widened. But you said we didn't know where Daddy's family was. I didn't know, Gracie. I just found out yesterday. 3 days had passed since the revelation at the Lancaster mansion. 3 mostly sleepless nights of Elena turning the journal's contents over in her mind, swinging wildly between anger at David's deception and understanding of his impossible choice. This morning, she'd finally called Eleanor. A knock at the apartment door sent Elena's heart racing. She took a deep breath, straightening her own simple dress, the nicest thing she owned, worn to job interviews and parent-teacher conferences. Remember what we talked about, sweetie. Grace needs to be careful because of her special heart, so no running or jumping around, okay? Grace nodded solemnly. At 6, she'd already learned to live with limitations that no child should face, to stop when she felt too tired, to tell an adult when her heart was doing the funny thing. Elena opened the door to find Eleanor Lancaster standing in the dingy hallway of their apartment building, looking completely out of place in her pearl gray designer suit. Despite the surroundings, she carried herself with dignified poise, holding a wrapped package. Thank you for calling, Eleanor said softly. Her eyes moved past Elena to where Grace stood partially hidden behind her mother's legs. The older woman's composure faltered momentarily, a tremor passing across her carefully controlled features. Please, come in, Elena said, stepping aside. She felt a flush of embarrassment as Eleanor entered their small apartment with its secondhand furniture and water stains on the ceiling. Compared to the Lancaster mansion, it was practically a hovel, but Eleanor didn't seem to notice the surroundings. Her attention was completely fixed on Grace. Hello, Grace, she said, her voice gentler than Elena had yet heard it. I'm Eleanor. I'm very happy to meet you. Grace, usually shy with strangers, stepped forward with surprising confidence. Are you really my grandma? Eleanor nodded, blinking rapidly. Yes, I really am. I never had a grandma before, Grace said thoughtfully. Do you like to color? I'm good at staying inside the lines. I haven't colored in a very long time, Eleanor replied with a small smile. But I'd love to try it again, Grace beamed, and turned to retrieve her coloring books and crayons from the bookshelf, moving with the careful deliberateness of a child used to monitoring her own exertion. She has his smile, Eleanor whispered, so only Elena could hear. Exactly his smile. Elena nodded, throat tight. Would you like some coffee? Or I have tea. Tea would be lovely, Thank you." While Elena busied herself in the kitchenette, she watched Eleanor awkwardly lower herself to sit cross-legged on the floor beside Grace, who had spread her coloring books on the coffee table. The incongruous image of the elegant society matron hunched over a Disney princess coloring book struck Elena as both amusing and poignant. "I brought something for you," Eleanor said to Grace, offering the wrapped package. "Mommy, can I open it?" Grace called. "Yes, it's fine," Elena said, bringing over 2 mugs of tea. She sat on the sofa, observing the interaction with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Grace carefully unwrapped the gift to reveal a teddy bear wearing a miniature lab coat and stethoscope. "Wow, he's a Dr. Bear," she exclaimed. "His name is Dr. Brewster," Eleanor explained. "He's a cardiologist, a heart doctor. When I heard you have a special heart, I thought he might keep you company at your appointments." "Thank you," Grace said, hugging the bear tightly. "I'm going to color a picture for you now." As Grace bent over her coloring book, Eleanor rose stiffly to join Elena on the sofa. "Thank you for this," Eleanor said quietly, cradling her mug, "for allowing me to meet her." "She deserves to know her family," Elena replied evenly. "No matter how complicated our situation is, she's remarkable, so poised for her age. She's had to grow up faster than most kids," Elena said, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. "Living with her condition, it changes you." "How serious is it?" Eleanor asked, keeping her voice low so Grace wouldn't hear. "Her heart condition," Elena sighed, running a hand through her hair. "She was born with it. The doctors initially thought it was a simple murmur, but as she grew, they diagnosed hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. She takes beta blockers to manage the symptoms. Some days are better than others. And the prognosis? Uncertain. She needs more specialized care than we can currently afford. Regular monitoring, possibly surgery eventually." Elena's jaw tightened. "I've been doing everything I can." "I don't doubt that for a moment," Eleanor said, watching Grace carefully color within the lines. "But now, you don't have to do it alone." Elena felt a reflexive resistance rise within her. For 7 years, she'd been Grace's only protector, her provider, her everything. The idea of accepting help, especially from the family of the man who had abandoned them, stirred complicated feelings of pride and resentment. "About what you mentioned the other night," Elena said carefully, "about David's inheritance. It's substantial," Eleanor confirmed. "And legally, it belongs to Grace, with you as her guardian until she's of age." "I don't want his money," Elena said sharply, then lowered her voice when Grace looked up. "We've managed this long without it. Have you?" "Really?" Eleanor's gaze was pointed but not unkind as she glanced around the apartment, at the stack of medical bills barely hidden under magazines on the side table, at the worn patches on the sofa covers. Elena bristled. "We've survived. This isn't about charity." "Elena, it's not even about David's guilt, though there was plenty of that." Eleanor set down her mug with a decisive click. "This is about Grace having access to treatments that could save her life. Treatments my foundation has been developing specifically for this condition." The words hung in the air between them. Elena glanced at her daughter, now showing Dr. Brewster how to hold a crayon properly. The bear's stethoscope glinted in the afternoon light streaming through their single window. "What exactly are these treatments?" Elena finally asked. "Experimental gene therapy, targeted medication protocols, ultimately, a new surgical approach." Eleanor's eyes lit with fierce determination. "My husband died of this disease. My son died of this disease. I've poured millions into research to make sure it stops with them." Her voice cracked slightly. "I didn't know I had a granddaughter to save." The raw emotion in Eleanor's voice caught Elena off guard. Behind the polished exterior was a woman who had lost everything, who was now grasping at this unexpected connection to her son. "I need to think about it," Elena said. "Softer now. It's not just about money. It's about letting someone else into our lives, into decisions I've always made alone." "I understand," Eleanor nodded. "But please don't take too long. Grace's condition." "Mommy, look," Grace interrupted, holding up her completed picture, a somewhat lopsided but recognizable drawing of a woman with gray hair. "It's Grandma Eleanor for her refrigerator." Eleanor accepted the picture with trembling hands. "It's beautiful, Grace. I shall hang it in a place of honor." She glanced at Elena, a silent question in her eyes. "Perhaps," Elena said carefully, "you could come visit again. Maybe Grace could see your house sometime." It was a small concession, but Eleanor's face brightened with hope. "I'd like that very much." She turned back to Grace. "And maybe next time you can bring Dr. Brewster for a checkup at my house. I have a garden he might enjoy exploring." "Does your house have a lot of stairs?" Grace asked pragmatically. "Sometimes stairs make my heart go too fast." Eleanor's smile faltered, her eyes meeting Elena's over Grace's head, a shared moment of painful understanding. "Don't worry about stairs, sweetheart. We'll make sure everything is just right for your special heart. I need a detailed family medical history, Mrs. Hart." Elena sat in Dr. Weston's office, clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles had turned white. In the examination room next door, Grace was being monitored by a nurse after her latest round of tests. "As I've told you before, I don't have much information about her father's side," Elena replied. Dr. Weston removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. "That's been the case for 6 years, but you called this emergency appointment saying you had new information about potential genetic factors." His tone was professional but tinged with impatience. "Grace's condition has deteriorated more rapidly than we anticipated. If there's something that could help us understand why, now is the time to share it." Elena took a deep breath. 2 weeks had passed since meeting Eleanor. 2 weeks of increasingly tense phone calls as Eleanor pressed for decisions while Elena hesitated. "Grace's paternal grandmother contacted me recently," she finally admitted. "It turns out her father died of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy last year. Her grandfather as well." Dr. Weston sat up straighter. "That changes things considerably. We're looking at an autosomal dominant inheritance pattern." "Why didn't you mention this sooner?" "Because I didn't know," Elena snapped, then immediately regretted her tone. "I'm sorry, the father. He concealed his identity and his condition from me. He left before Grace was born. I only discovered the truth 2 weeks ago." The doctor's expression softened slightly. "I understand, but moving forward, we need all the information we can get. These familial cases can be particularly aggressive." A cold fear spread through Elena's chest. "What exactly does that mean for Grace?" "It means we need to adjust her treatment plan immediately. And frankly, Mrs. Hart, it means we should be discussing more advanced options than what your insurance currently covers." Elena stared at the worn carpet beneath her feet. The grandmother mentioned experimental treatments. "A research foundation." Dr. Weston's eyebrows shot up. "What foundation?" "The Lancaster Heart Research Foundation." Recognition flashed across the doctor's face. "The Lancasters, that's Grace's paternal family." Elena nodded mutely. "Mrs. Hart, their research is groundbreaking. Dr. Abernathy at the Lancaster Institute is pioneering gene therapy approaches that could potentially halt the progression of HM." He leaned forward earnestly. "If Grace has access to those resources, it could change everything." Before Elena could respond, the office door burst open. The nurse who had been monitoring Grace stood there, face tense with urgency. "Dr. Weston, she's having an episode. Heart rate 180 and climbing." The world seemed to tilt as Elena followed the doctor down the hall at a run. Inside the examination room, Grace lay on the table, her small face alarmingly pale, lips tinged with blue. "Mommy," she whispered, fear widening her eyes. "My heart's doing the really bad thing." "I know, baby. The doctors are going to help," Elena said, struggling to keep her voice steady as she gripped her daughter's hand. What followed was a blur of medical terminology and controlled urgency. Medication administered, monitors beeping, Grace's tiny body hooked to machines that seemed to swallow her whole. Terms like ventricular tachycardia and increased obstruction floated in the air like deadly birds. Hours later, Elena sat beside Grace's hospital bed, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall in sedated sleep. The episode had been stabilized. "But Doctor," Weston's words echoed in her mind. "This was a warning. We need to be more aggressive with her treatment." The sound of the hospital room door opening pulled Elena from her thoughts. Eleanor Lancaster stood in the doorway, her normally impeccable appearance showing signs of haste. A scarf slightly askew, strands of silver hair escaping her usual perfect coiffure. "I came as soon as I got your message," she said quietly. eyes fixed on Grace's sleeping form. "How is she?" "Stable for now," Elena replied, too exhausted for pretense or pride. They had to sedate her to get her heart rate under control. Eleanor moved to the opposite side of the bed, gently touching Grace's hand where it lay atop the blanket. "What did the doctors say?" "That her condition is worse than they thought, that it's following the familial pattern." Elena looked up, meeting Eleanor's eyes directly. "They said she needs more aggressive treatment than what we can access through my insurance." Eleanor nodded, a grim satisfaction in her expression, not at Grace's condition, but at Elena finally acknowledging what she'd been trying to tell her. "Dr. Abernathy can see her tomorrow," Eleanor said. "I've already called him." Under normal circumstances, Elena might have bristled at this presumption. Instead, she felt only relief that someone else was taking action while she focused on simply breathing through the terror of almost losing her child. "Thank you," she said simply. Eleanor pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down, her posture rigid, but her eyes never leaving Grace's face. "I've been where you are," she said after a long silence, "sitting by a hospital bed, watching someone I love struggle to breathe because their heart is betraying them. I watched my husband die this way, then my son." The raw pain in Eleanor's voice stripped away the last of Elena's resistance. This woman wasn't an interloper or a threat. She was someone who understood Elena's fear in a way few others could. "I've been so stupid," Elena whispered. "So stubborn, wasting time while Grace—" "You were protecting your daughter the only way you knew how," Eleanor interrupted firmly. "Just as David thought he was protecting you both by leaving." A complicated expression crossed her face. "We Lancaster women tend to marry men who make noble but misguided decisions." Despite everything, Elena felt a small smile tug at her lips. "I wasn't married to him." "A technicality," Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. "He loved you. That's clear from every page of his journal." Grace stirred slightly, her monitors beeping a subtle change in pattern before steadying again. Both women held their breath until she settled back into sleep. "The Lancaster Foundation has a suite of rooms at St. Mary's Medical Center," Eleanor said quietly. "Private floor, full-time specialists. It's where we conduct our clinical trials." "Clinical trials," Elena repeated. "That sounds experimental, yes." Eleanor's eyes hardened with determination. "But the traditional approaches failed David. Failed my husband. I won't let them fail Grace too." Elena looked down at her daughter, so small in the large hospital bed, her dark curls splayed against the white pillow. 7 years of doing everything on her own, of being Grace's only defender against the world. 7 years of deciding alone. "I need to see the paperwork," she finally said. "I need to understand exactly what these treatments involve." Eleanor reached into her handbag and withdrew a folder. Of course she had come prepared. "Dr. Abernathy's complete protocol. Take all the time you need to review it." As Elena accepted the folder, their fingers briefly touched. "There's something else," Eleanor added, her voice careful. "To access the Foundation's resources, we'll need to officially establish Grace as David's daughter. For the legal record, and to access his trust." Reality crashed back into the moment. Medical decisions were one thing, but officially tying Grace to the Lancaster family and fortune, that was permanent. A fundamental change to the careful life Elena had constructed. "The money isn't for you," Eleanor said, seeming to read Elena's thoughts. "It's for her, her treatments, her future. David wanted this." Grace's monitors beeped softly in the quiet room, each sound a reminder of her fragile heartbeat, of time slipping away. "I'll sign whatever's necessary," Elena said finally. "For Grace." Relief washed over Eleanor's face. She reached across the bed, briefly squeezing Elena's hand. "I'll have the lawyers bring the papers tomorrow." And Elena, "Yes, you're not alone anymore. Neither of you are." The simple statement broke something open inside Elena's chest, a dam of independence and isolation she'd built over 7 years of single motherhood. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded, too overwhelmed to speak, but still holding tight to the older woman's hand across her daughter's sleeping form. St. Mary's Medical Center's Lancaster wing bore little resemblance to any hospital Elena had ever seen. The private suite where Grace had been transferred looked more like a luxury hotel room, with soft lighting, comfortable furniture, and medical equipment tastefully concealed when not in use. Through the large windows, the Savannah skyline glittered in the evening light. Elena sat in the cushioned window seat, watching Grace sleep peacefully after her latest round of tests. Dr. Abernathy's team had moved with astonishing efficiency once Eleanor made the call. Within 48 hours, they'd conducted more comprehensive testing than Grace had received in her entire life. The genetic screening alone would have cost more than Elena earned in a year. A soft knock at the door pulled Elena from her thoughts. Eleanor entered, carrying 2 steaming cups. "I thought you might prefer tea to the hospital coffee," she said, offering one to Elena. "The cafeteria selection is abysmal, but I've had my housekeeper bring some proper blends." "Thank you." Elena accepted the cup gratefully. 3 days of keeping vigil had left her exhausted and operating on caffeine and adrenaline. Eleanor settled into an armchair opposite the window seat, her eyes drifting to Grace's sleeping form. "Dr. Abernathy is reviewing the latest results. He should be up within the hour." Elena nodded, cradling the warm cup between her palms. They had fallen into an uneasy alliance. The 2 women, united in their concern for Grace, but still carefully navigating the complex emotional terrain between them. "You know," Eleanor said, after a moment of silence, "David looked exactly like that when he slept as a child, the same way her mouth relaxes just slightly open." Elena studied Grace's face, trying to see what Eleanor saw. "I've always thought she looks like my mother, but her curls..." She smiled faintly. "Those are all David. Did he ever mention his childhood? His family?" Eleanor asked tentatively. Elena shook her head. He was deliberately vague, said his parents had died, that he was an only child. I assumed he didn't like talking about it because it was painful. In a way, that was true, Eleanor sighed. Robert, my husband, died when David was just 15. It changed him profoundly. I didn't know that. David was there when it happened. They were sailing on the Chesapeake. Robert had a sudden cardiac event. We didn't know about the HCM then. David had to sail back to shore alone with his father's body. Eleanor's voice grew distant with painful memory. He was never quite the same afterward, became obsessed with making the most of every moment, as if he were racing against some invisible clock. In hindsight, perhaps he sensed what was coming for him. Elena tried to reconcile this story with the David she had known, the man who brought her wildflowers just because it was Tuesday, who spent hours discussing philosophy and art with the same enthusiasm he brought to their more intimate moments. He was so full of life when I knew him, she said softly, so passionate about everything. It's hard to imagine him knowing he was dying. Eleanor smiled sadly. He was always good at compartmentalizing, even as a boy. She hesitated, then asked, "Would you tell me about him? About your time together?" I've tried to piece it together from his journal, but the request caught Elena off guard. For years, her memories of David had been tinged with bitterness and abandonment. Only recently had she begun to see them in a new light. "We met at the cafe where I worked," she began hesitantly. "He came in every morning for black coffee and a blueberry muffin. Always left a ridiculous tip." She smiled at the memory. "He said it was because I was the only person in Savannah who didn't try to make small talk before he'd had his coffee." Eleanor chuckled. "That sounds like him. He was never a morning person. After 2 weeks, he asked me out. I said no at first. I was busy with work and night classes." Elena's smile widened. "He kept asking. Said he'd ask every day until I ran out of excuses. Persistent." Eleanor nodded, like his father. "When I finally said yes, he took me to this tiny art gallery opening. Not what I expected. I thought he'd choose something flashy, expensive, but it was this little student showcase. We were underdressed, but he didn't care. Said he wanted to see emerging artists before they got too full of themselves." The memories flowed more easily now. Like water breaking through a dam, Elena found herself telling Eleanor about moonlit walks along River Street, about heated debates over obscure films, about the time David attempted to cook a romantic dinner and set off the smoke alarm in her tiny apartment. "He never mentioned being sick?" Eleanor asked during a pause. Elena shook her head. "Never. He was so vibrant, so alive. There were times when he'd get philosophical about mortality, about making every moment count, but I thought that was just his personality." "And when did you realize you were pregnant?" Elena's expression sobered. "About 3 months after we met. I was terrified to tell him. We hadn't talked about anything long-term. She stared into her tea. The night I planned to tell him, he seemed distracted, almost nervous. Now I know why. He'd just received his diagnosis. What happened exactly? When he disappeared, I told him I needed to talk about something important. He said he had an early meeting the next day but would come by after. He kissed me goodbye. Elena's voice faltered, and I never saw him again. His phone was disconnected. The address he'd given me turned out to be a mail forwarding service. It was like he'd never existed. Eleanor closed her eyes briefly, as if the story caused her physical pain. He wrote about that night, how terrified he was that you were going to tell him about the pregnancy, how he couldn't bear the thought of tying you to a dying man, of potentially passing his condition to an innocent child. He was right about that part, Elena said bitterly, glancing at Grace. She did inherit it. But he was wrong about leaving, Eleanor said firmly. That's where he was wrong. A heavy silence fell between them. Eleanor seemed to be wrestling with something, her fingers tightening around her teacup. I need to confess something, she finally said. Something I'm deeply ashamed of. Elena looked up, surprised by the tremor in the older woman's voice. David told me about you in those last months, Eleanor continued. Not your name, but that there had been someone special, someone he'd left because of his diagnosis. I told him he'd done the right thing. Elena felt as if she'd been slapped. What? I was wrong, Eleanor said quickly, her eyes glistening. Terribly wrong. But I'd watched my husband die of this disease, watched how it destroyed him, how helpless I felt. When David was diagnosed, all I could think about was sparing anyone else that pain. She set her cup down, hands shaking slightly. I encouraged his misguided nobility, and in doing so, I robbed all of us of precious time together. The confession hung in the air between them. Elena struggled to process this new dimension to their shared tragedy. I've spent the past year searching for you both, Eleanor continued. Not just because of David's will, but because I needed to make amends. To him, to you, to the grandchild I didn't know I had. She looked directly at Elena, her composure cracking. I failed my son when he needed guidance most. I won't fail his daughter. Before Elena could respond, the door opened, and Dr. Abernathy entered. The tall, distinguished doctor carried a tablet and a grave expression that immediately commanded both women's attention. Mrs. Hart, Mrs. Lancaster, he nodded to each of them. I have Grace's complete results, and I'm afraid we need to move more quickly than anticipated. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. What does that mean? Grace's condition is progressing faster than we initially thought. The genetic markers she inherited create a particularly aggressive form of HCM. He swiped through several screens on his tablet. I believe our best option is to move forward with the experimental protocol immediately, followed by surgical intervention within the month. Surgery? Elena whispered, looking from the doctor to Eleanor. You didn't mention surgery. It's a new procedure, Doctor, Abernathy explained. Developed specifically for genetic HCM cases like Grace's. We've had promising results in our trials. How promising? Eleanor asked sharply. 70% success rate in halting progression, 40% show actual regression of symptoms. He looked at them both solemnly. Given the rapid progression we're seeing in Grace's case, I believe it's our best option. Elena looked at her sleeping daughter, then back to Eleanor, whose face reflected her own fear, but also fierce determination. Whatever it takes, Elena said finally. Whatever she needs. Eleanor reached across the space between them, taking Elena's hand in a firm grip. Together, she said quietly. We face this together. Surgery is scheduled for 7 a.m. tomorrow. Dr. Abernathy stood at the foot of Grace's hospital bed. Surrounded by a team of specialists, Grace sat propped against pillows. Dr. Brewster the teddy bear clutched tightly against her chest as the doctors explained the procedure in simplified terms, suitable for a 6-year-old. We're going to help your heart work better, Doctor, Abernathy said, his normally serious face softening as he addressed Grace. You'll be asleep the whole time, and when you wake up, your mom and grandma will be right there waiting. Will it hurt? Grace asked in a small voice. Not while you're asleep, he answered honestly. And we'll give you special medicine afterward so you won't feel too much pain when you wake up. Grace considered this, her small brow furrowing with a maturity that broke Elena's heart. At 6 years old, her daughter had spent more time in hospitals than playgrounds, more time with doctors than playmates. "Is Dr. Brewster coming with me?" Grace asked. "I'm afraid Dr. Brewster will have to wait with your mom and grandma," Dr. Abernathy replied, "but I promise we'll take very good care of you." After the medical team left, Grace dozed off, exhausted from the week's battery of tests and treatments. The experimental gene therapy injections had left her feverish and tired, but Dr. Abernathy assured them this was an expected response. Elena stood by the window, staring out at the hospital garden below without really seeing it. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of medical consultations, legal paperwork, and emotional reckonings. David's estate was now officially in trust for Grace, with Elena as guardian. The DNA tests confirming Grace's paternity, a formality, given the obvious inheritance of both his looks and his disease, had been filed with the courts. "You should try to get some sleep," Eleanor said, joining her at the window. "Tomorrow will be a long day." "I can't sleep," Elena replied, not turning from the window. "Every time I close my eyes, I see all the things that could go wrong tomorrow." Eleanor's reflection nodded in understanding. "I know, I've been there, with David, and Robert before him." Eleanor's voice carried the weight of too many hospital vigils. The night before David's first major cardiac procedure, I sat by his bed all night, just watching him breathe, terrified each breath might be his last. Elena finally turned to face the older woman. In the 3 weeks since Grace's emergency, they had formed an uneasy alliance, united by their shared love for the small girl sleeping in the hospital bed. But moments of true connection were still rare, carefully navigated like crossing a frozen lake of uncertain thickness. "How did you bear it?" Elena asked softly. "Watching the people you love suffer like this, knowing there's nothing you can do." Eleanor was silent for a long moment. "Not well," she finally admitted. "After Robert died, I buried myself in foundation work, in fundraisers and galas. I became the perfect society widow while falling apart inside." She glanced at Grace. "When David got sick, I tried to control everything. His treatments, his diet, his life. I thought if I just managed it all perfectly, I could save him. But you couldn't," Elena said, not unkindly. "No, in the end, all the money, all the specialists, all the experimental treatments, they bought time, but they couldn't change his fate." Eleanor's perfectly manicured hands twisted together. "Do you know what I regret most?" Elena shook her head. "All the moments I wasted worrying about treatments and protocols instead of simply being with him. All the times I was so focused on saving his life that I forgot to share in it." The words landed heavily in Elena's chest. How many times had she declined Grace's requests to read another story because she needed to review medical bills? How many moments had she missed while working extra shifts to pay for treatments? "What was he like?" Elena asked suddenly. "David, as a child." A smile softened Eleanor's features, erasing years of worry lines. "Curious about everything, always asking why, until I thought I'd go mad. Collecting rocks, bugs, leaves. Our housekeeper quit twice because of the creatures he'd smuggle into his room." Elena laughed softly. "Grace does that. Last month, I found a jar of caterpillars under her bed. She was observing their life cycle for science. David once liberated all the frogs from his biology class." Eleanor continued, warming to the subject. "Said it was cruel to dissect them. He set them loose in the headmaster's office. What happened? He was suspended for a week. His father was furious, but secretly proud, I think." Eleanor's eyes grew distant with memory. David always had a strong sense of justice. Even as a boy, he couldn't bear to see anything suffering. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. The man who couldn't bear suffering had caused so much of it through his absence, all while suffering himself. "What about as a teenager?" Elena prompted. "After his father died." Eleanor's smile faded. Angry, rebellious, he started sailing alone in storms, drove too fast, took risks no mother could stomach watching. I think he was testing fate, or perhaps punishing himself for surviving when his father hadn't. And then, college changed him. He found purpose in business, in continuing his father's legacy. He seemed to settle, to find peace. Eleanor looked at Elena curiously. "What about you?" What was your childhood like? The question caught Elena off guard in all their conversations about Grace, about David, about treatments and legal matters. They'd rarely touched on Elena's past. Ordinary, she said automatically. Nothing like. She gestured vaguely at the luxurious hospital suite, at Eleanor's designer clothes. That's not what I asked, Eleanor said gently. Elena sighed, gathering her thoughts. My father left when I was 4. I barely remember him. My mother worked 2 jobs to support us. We moved a lot, wherever the rent was cheapest. She paused, surprised by the emotion welling up as she spoke of a past she rarely discussed. She died my senior year of high school. Cancer. I'm sorry, Eleanor said quietly. Elena shrugged. An old defense mechanism. It was a long time ago. Is that why you fought so hard to handle everything on your own? With Grace? The observation was uncomfortably perceptive. Elena turned back to the window. Maybe, or maybe I just didn't have any other choice. And now? Eleanor asked carefully. Now? Elena looked back at Grace, so small in the hospital bed. Now I'm learning that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is accept help. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dr. Abernathy returned, his face grave. I apologize for the late hour, but there's been a development. He looked between the 2 women. Grace's latest echocardiogram shows increasing obstruction. We need to move the surgery up to tonight. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her. Tonight? But you said tomorrow. Her condition is deteriorating more rapidly than we anticipated. I've assembled the surgical team. We'll begin prepping her immediately. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Medical staff prepping Grace, consent forms to sign, pre-surgical protocols explained in terms Elena could barely process through her fear. When it was time, Elena leaned over the gurney, kissing Grace's forehead. I love you, baby. Mommy will be right here when you wake up. Promise? Grace asked drowsily, already affected by the pre-surgical medication. I promise. Elena forced her voice to remain steady. Dr. Brewster and I will be waiting. And Grandma Eleanor, too. Eleanor stepped forward, taking Grace's small hand. I'll be right here with your mother, sweetheart. The whole time. As the orderlies wheeled Grace toward the operating room, Elena felt her legs give way. Eleanor caught her arm, supporting her as they watched the doors swing closed behind Grace's gurney. Come, Eleanor said firmly. We'll wait together. The surgical waiting room in the Lancaster wing bore little resemblance to the crowded, uncomfortable spaces Elena had endured during Grace's previous hospitalizations. Plush seating, subtle lighting, and a private attendant offering coffee and food created an almost surreal atmosphere of luxury in the midst of crisis. Eleanor guided Elena to a sofa, pressing a cup of tea into her hands. 8 to 10 hours, they said. It's going to be a long night. Elena nodded mutely, clutching the teacup like a lifeline. As the clock on the wall ticked past midnight, marking the beginning of the longest day of her life, she found herself grateful for the unexpected ally sitting beside her, this woman who had already endured what Elena feared most. Tell me more, Elena said suddenly. About David, about your husband, about anything, just help me get through these hours. Eleanor understood. As dawn slowly approached outside the windows, the 2 women who had loved David Lancaster shared stories through the night, weaving together the pieces of a life cut short, finding unexpected comfort in each other as they waited for news of the little girl who connected them all. There were complications. Dr. Abernathy's voice seemed to come from miles away as he stood before them in his surgical scrubs, mask hanging around his neck. It was 9:37 a.m., nearly 10 hours since Grace had been wheeled into surgery. What kind of complications? Eleanor demanded, her society polish giving way to raw maternal fear. The procedure itself went as planned, he explained, rubbing exhaustion from his eyes. But Grace's heart struggled to resume normal rhythm afterward. We had to place her on temporary bypass while we stabilized her. Elena felt the room tilt dangerously. Is she? She couldn't finish the question. She's alive, Dr. Abernathy assured her quickly. But I need to be frank with you both. The next 48 hours are critical. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to reduce strain on her heart while it adapts to the structural changes from the surgery. A coma, Elena whispered. It's precautionary and temporary, he explained. It gives her heart the best chance to recover. When can we see her? Eleanor asked. her hand gripping Elena's arm so tightly it would likely bruise. "She's being transferred to the pediatric ICU now. You can see her in about 30 minutes. He hesitated, compassion softening his professional demeanor. "I should prepare you. There will be a lot of equipment, ventilator, monitoring machines, IV lines. It can be overwhelming." Elena nodded numbly. Nothing about the past month had been anything but overwhelming. Her prognosis, Eleanor pressed. Long term. If she makes it through the next 48 hours, her chances improve dramatically, Dr. Abernathy said carefully. The procedure addressed the structural abnormality, and the gene therapy should help prevent further thickening of the heart muscle. But right now, we focus on getting through today and tomorrow. When they were finally allowed to see Grace, Elena thought she was prepared. She wasn't, despite Dr. Abernathy's warnings. The sight of her daughter, her vibrant, curious, resilient little girl, lying motionless amidst a tangle of tubes and wires, stole the breath from her lungs. Grace looked impossibly small, her skin nearly as white as the hospital sheets. The rhythmic hiss of the ventilator and steady beep of monitors created an alien soundtrack to this nightmare tableau. "Oh, Grace," Elena whispered, approaching the bed with tentative steps. A nurse adjusted something on one of the monitors. "You can touch her," she said gently. "She won't wake, but some studies suggest coma patients can still sense the presence of loved ones." Elena carefully took Grace's small hand, mindful of the IV lines. Eleanor remained at the foot of the bed, one hand pressed to her mouth, eyes fixed on her granddaughter's face. "She looks like David did," Eleanor whispered. After his first major surgery, the hours that followed established a grim rhythm. Nurses came and went, doctors checked readings and made notes. Elena and Eleanor took turns sitting beside Grace, speaking softly to her, reading stories, or simply holding her hand in silence. As evening approached, Elena found herself alone with Grace while Eleanor stepped out to make some calls. Exhaustion weighed on her like a physical presence after more than 30 hours without real sleep. The steady beep of the heart monitor had become a metronome to her thoughts, marking the passage of time in her daughter's struggle between life and death. Her gaze fell on the nightstand where she had placed David's journal. Eleanor had insisted she bring it, saying, "You should read all of it, truly understand him." In the quiet of the ICU, with Grace's unconscious form beside her, Elena picked up the leather-bound book. She had read fragments, the parts Eleanor had shown her that first night, sections about his diagnosis and his decision to leave. But she had avoided reading it in its entirety, as if fully engaging with David's words would somehow make his absence more permanent, more real. She opened to a random page, somewhere in the middle, November 14th, 2019. Another treatment failed. "Dr. Richardson says my heart is continuing to deteriorate despite the medication. I've begun sorting my affairs, though Mother doesn't know. I can't bear to see that look on her face, the one that says she's mentally planning another funeral. I dreamed of Elena last night. We were on Tybee Island, like that day when we rented bicycles and got caught in the thunderstorm, huddled under that little seafood shack's awning, soaking wet and laughing. In the dream, there was a child with us, a little girl with Elena's smile and my curls. I woke up crying. Did I make the right choice? The question haunts me daily now. What if I had stayed? What if I had given Elena the chance to decide for herself whether to share this burden? What if there really is a child out there who carries my name, my genes, my disease? Elena turned the page, tears blurring her vision. December 3rd, 2019. Mother caught me looking at Elena's old social media profiles today. She was furious, said I was torturing myself unnecessarily. Perhaps she's right. Elena appears to have moved on. No sign of a child in any of the photos, though her accounts seem largely inactive now. Maybe that's a blessing. I hope she's happy, wherever she is, whatever life she's built without me. The irony doesn't escape me, that I left to spare her pain, yet here I am, still causing her pain in my thoughts, still selfishly wondering if she misses me, still hoping I meant as much to her as she did to me. Elena flipped toward the end of the journal, where the handwriting grew increasingly unsteady. April 25th, 2023. Harmon thinks he's close to finding them. Says there's a Grace Hart enrolled in kindergarten at Westside Elementary. Mother doesn't know I've continued the search. She thinks I've accepted things, found peace with my decisions. But I can't die without knowing. I can't leave this world without at least trying to make amends. To provide for them. If nothing else, the doctors say weeks, maybe a month. Not enough time to do this right. Not enough time to explain. Not enough time to beg forgiveness. Just enough time, perhaps, to ensure they're taken care of when I'm gone. The final pages contained practical notes, instructions about his will, requests for his funeral, and repeatedly, urgently, directions to find Elena and the child, if she exists. The last entry, dated just 3 days before his death, was barely legible, written with a shaking hand, May 9th, 2023. No more strength, no more time. If you're reading this, Mother, and if you find them, tell Elena I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her until my last breath. Tell my child, my daughter, that her father was a coward, but not for the reasons she might think. Not because I didn't want her, but because I wanted her to have better than what I could give. Tell her. The entry ended mid-sentence, as if he'd been interrupted or had lost consciousness while writing. Elena pressed the journal to her chest, silent tears streaming down her face. He wanted to find you. Eleanor's voice came from the doorway. She stood watching Elena, her own eyes red-rimmed. Those last months, it consumed him. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Elena asked, carefully closing the journal. Eleanor moved to sit in the chair on the opposite side of Grace's bed. I was ashamed. I tried to stop him from searching, told him it would only bring pain to everyone. She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from Grace's blanket. I thought I was protecting him, protecting you both. I was wrong. He never got to see her, Elena whispered, looking at Grace's pale face. Never knew she existed for certain. No, the confirmation came 2 weeks after the funeral. The private investigator delivered his final report to me instead. Eleanor's voice cracked slightly. I sat in my study staring at your address for 3 days, unable to decide what to do, whether you were better off not knowing, whether Grace was better off without the Lancaster name and all the pain it seemed to bring. What changed your mind? David. Even gone. He was persistent. Eleanor smiled sadly. His will explicitly instructed that the search continue, and the trustees would not release funds for the foundation without evidence that every effort had been made to locate his potential heirs. A soft alarm beeped on one of the monitors. Bringing a nurse hurrying in, she checked readings, adjusted something, and the alarm quieted. Is everything okay? Elena asked anxiously. Her blood pressure dipped a bit, but it's stabilizing, the nurse assured them. The doctor will be in shortly to check on her. When they were alone again, Elena found herself asking the question that had been circling in her mind since reading the journal. Do you think she'll forgive him? When she's old enough to understand? Eleanor considered this, watching the gentle rise and fall of Grace's chest. I think forgiveness is complicated. As someone who has needed it and given it, it rarely comes all at once. It's a process. Like grief, Elena murmured. Yes, and they're connected, those two. You can't fully forgive until you've grieved what was lost. Eleanor reached across the bed, hesitantly extending her hand. After a moment, Elena took it. David made a terrible mistake, but from the deepest place of love, I have to believe Grace will understand that someday. Dr. Abernathy entered, checking Grace's charts and vitals. How's our patient doing? You tell us, Eleanor said. Slipping back into her more formal demeanor, he studied the monitors. Her vitals are stabilizing. That's a positive sign. We'll run another echocardiogram in the morning to check how the surgical site is healing. After he left, Elena carefully placed Dr. Brewster next to Grace's pillow. I think she can sense us, she said. I want her to know she's not alone. She's not, Eleanor agreed, and neither are you. As night fell over Savannah, the two women kept their vigil, bound by love for the small girl fighting for her life, and by the memory of the man who had loved and lost them both. Mommy, the word, raspy and faint, jolted Elena from her half-doze. 5 days had passed since Grace's surgery. 3 days since the doctors had begun gradually reducing her sedation. Hours of watching for any flicker of consciousness, any sign of return. Grace, baby, I'm here. Elena leaned over the bed, hardly daring to hope. Grace's eyelids fluttered, then opened halfway, revealing disoriented brown eyes. David's eyes. "Thirsty," she whispered. Elena's hands trembled as she pressed the call button. Within moments, a nurse appeared, breaking into a smile at seeing Grace awake. "Well, hello there, sleepyhead," she said, quickly checking vital signs. "Let me get Dr. Abernathy." While they waited, Elena helped Grace take tiny sips of water from a pink plastic cup. The girl's movements were weak, uncoordinated, but unmistakably present. Alive. "Where's Grandma Eleanor?" Grace asked, her voice still rough from the ventilator tube that had been removed the previous day. "She went to get some rest. She'll be back soon." Elena stroked her daughter's hair, marveling at the simple miracle of consciousness, of recognition in those brown eyes. Dr. Abernathy arrived minutes later. Eleanor just steps behind him, having been called immediately. The doctor's examination was thorough, but gentle, explaining each step to Grace in simple terms. "You're doing remarkably well," he told her, putting away his stethoscope. "Your heart sounds much stronger already. Can I have ice cream?" Grace asked, her priorities clear. The adults laughed, the sound almost startling in the room that had been filled with nothing but beeping monitors and hushed conversations for days. "Not quite yet," Dr. Abernathy smiled. "Let's start with some applesauce and see how that goes. But if all continues well, ice cream might be on the menu in a day or two." After he left, Eleanor approached the bed, her normally perfect composure cracking as she took in Grace's alert, if tired, expression. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, voice thick with emotion. "You gave us quite a scare. Did Dr. Brewster take good care of you?" Grace asked seriously, pointing to the teddy bear that hadn't left her pillow since the surgery. "The very best care," Eleanor assured her, blinking back tears. "He's an excellent doctor." As the day progressed, Grace drifted in and out of sleep, each waking period a little longer, a little more coherent. By evening, she was able to eat small amounts of soft food and engage in brief conversations before tiring. The next morning brought Dr. Abernathy back with a team of specialists. They conducted a battery of tests, including an echocardiogram and extensive cognitive assessments, to ensure there had been no neurological damage during the periods when Grace's oxygen levels had dipped. Elena and Eleanor waited anxiously in the private family lounge while the tests were conducted. Neither woman had gone home since Grace's surgery, sleeping in shifts on the pull-out sofa in the hospital suite, showering in the adjoining bathroom, accepting fresh clothes brought by Eleanor's housekeeper. "She seems so alert," Elena said, pacing the length of the lounge for what felt like the 100th time. "That's good, right?" "It's very good," Eleanor confirmed. David took much longer to regain full awareness after his procedures. The door opened, and Dr. Abernathy entered with a tablet in hand. Both women froze, trying to read his expression. "Ladies," he said, and for the first time since they'd met him, he smiled broadly. "I have excellent news." Elena gripped the back of a chair. "The tests. Grace is responding remarkably well. The surgery appears to have successfully addressed the structural issues with her heart. The post-operative imaging shows significantly improved blood flow." He swiped through several screens on his tablet. "Even more encouraging, her cardiac cells are already showing a positive response to the gene therapy. It's early, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we've halted the progression of the disease." Elena's legs gave way, and she sank into the chair she'd been gripping. "She's going to be okay. There's a long recovery ahead," Dr. Abernathy cautioned, "and she'll need careful monitoring for years. But yes, I believe Grace has an excellent chance at a normal life expectancy." Eleanor, who had remained standing, asked the question Elena couldn't form. A normal life, not just extended time, but quality of life as well. Based on what we're seeing, yes, Grace should be able to attend school normally, participate in most activities with reasonable limitations. He looked between them, his expression serious but hopeful. "We've learned a great deal since David's case. The combination of surgical intervention and gene therapy appears to be far more effective than either approach alone." The words washed over Elena like a physical wave. A normal life, school, friends, a future, all the things she had feared Grace might never have. "When can she come home?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'd like to keep her here for another week of monitoring. After that, if her progress continues, she can continue her recovery as an outpatient." Dr. Abernathy paused. Though I should clarify, she'll need frequent checkups, specialized care, physical therapy. It would be best if she remained close to our facility for at least the first 6 months. Elena's heart sank slightly. Their apartment was on the other side of Savannah, a 40-minute drive in good traffic. With her waitressing jobs, she couldn't possibly manage daily trips to the hospital. That won't be a problem, Eleanor said firmly. The Lancaster estate is only 15 minutes from here. There's plenty of room for both Elena and Grace. Elena's head snapped up. Eleanor, I couldn't possibly. It's not charity, Eleanor interrupted, reading her expression. It's practical, and it's what David would have wanted. Her voice softened. What I want too. Before Elena could respond, a nurse appeared at the door. Miss Grace is asking for both of you, she said with a smile, and she's quite insistent about it. They found Grace sitting up in bed, looking more alert than she had since before the surgery. The improvement from even that morning was remarkable. Guess what? Grace said as they entered, her voice stronger. Dr. Jen says I can have ice cream today. That's wonderful news, Eleanor said, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. And she says my heart is getting stronger every day, Grace continued. She showed me pictures of it on the computer. It was kind of gross but cool. Elena laughed, the sound surprising her. When had she last truly laughed? Grandma Eleanor, Grace said, suddenly serious. When I get better, can we go see your house? You said you have a garden. Eleanor glanced at Elena, a question in her eyes. We'll see, sweetheart, Elena said cautiously. You need to focus on getting better first. But Dr. Abernathy said I'll be able to leave soon. Grace persisted. Where will we go? Back to our apartment. The directness of a child. Elena thought. No polite evasions, just the heart of the matter. Actually, Eleanor said, I was hoping you and your mother might consider staying with me for a while, just until you're fully recovered. Grace's eyes widened. In your big house. With the garden. Yes. There's a suite of rooms in the east wing that would be perfect for you both, and the garden is visible right from the windows. Can we, Mom? Please. Grace turned to Elena, excitement bringing color to her pale cheeks. Elena hesitated. The practical benefits were undeniable. Proximity to the hospital, space for Grace to recover comfortably, financial relief while Elena figured out their next steps. But it meant accepting help on a scale she had never allowed herself to consider, surrendering some of the fierce independence that had defined her life as Grace's mother. Yet looking at her daughter's hopeful face, at Eleanor's carefully controlled expression hiding vulnerability, Elena realized something had shifted within her during those terrifying days of waiting. Some of her pride had burned away in the crucible of fear, leaving behind a clearer understanding of what truly mattered. Just until you're fully recovered, Elena said carefully. We can try it and see how it goes. Grace beamed, turning to Eleanor. Does your garden have butterflies? I'm collecting data on butterfly species for my science notebook. I believe it does, Eleanor replied, a smile transforming her usually serious face. And if we don't have enough varieties, we can certainly plant flowers to attract more, as Grace peppered Eleanor with questions about the garden, the house, and whether there were frogs in the fountain, apparently a critical scientific concern. Elena watched the interchange with a strange sense of witnessing something both completely new and somehow predestined. This unlikely connection between her daughter and David's mother, between all three of them, had been forged through tragedy and fear, but it was being tempered now by something stronger. Hope. Hope for Grace's future. For healing that went beyond the physical. For the first time in 7 years, Elena allowed herself to imagine a life where she wasn't fighting alone. 6 months after Grace's surgery, the east wing of the Lancaster mansion bore little resemblance to the formal, austere space it had once been. Colorful artwork hung alongside ancestral portraits. A child-sized desk sat beneath a window overlooking the garden, scattered with crayons and science notebooks. The sitting room that had once hosted Eleanor's society friends now contained a small piano where Grace took lessons twice weekly. Elena stood in the doorway of Grace's bedroom, watching her daughter carefully organizing a collection of pressed flowers in a scrapbook. The transformation in Grace over the past months had been nothing short of miraculous. Her skin had a healthy glow, her energy levels steadily increasing with each follow-up appointment. Dr. Abernathy's cautious optimism had grown into confident assertions that the combined surgical and genetic intervention had been successful beyond their most hopeful projections. "Don't forget we have your checkup at 3, Elena reminded her. Grace nodded without looking up from her project. "I know. Grandma Eleanor is coming too. She's going to show Dr. Abernathy the charts we've been keeping." The charts had been Eleanor's idea, detailed tracking of Grace's activity levels, heart rate during various activities, and energy patterns. What had begun as medical monitoring had evolved into a shared science project between grandmother and granddaughter, with Eleanor teaching Grace basic data analysis as they recorded her recovery progress. "Is that what you're wearing?" Grace asked, eyeing Elena's outfit. Elena glanced down at her simple blouse and pants. "Yes, why? You should wear the blue dress, the one Grandma Eleanor got you. You look pretty in it." Elena shook her head, smiling. "This isn't a fashion show. It's a doctor's appointment." "Still," Grace said with 6-year-old wisdom, "pretty is better than not pretty." Elena laughed and left Grace to her project, walking through the connecting door to their suite's sitting room. The temporary arrangement had stretched from weeks into months with surprising ease. What Elena had expected to be an uncomfortable imposition had gradually evolved into something else entirely, a genuine household with its own rhythms and routines. She moved to the large bay window that overlooked the back gardens. Below, she could see the newly installed accessible paths that allowed Grace to explore independently during her recovery. The butterfly garden they had planted together, and the small pond where Grace conducted what she solemnly called her amphibian research. The sound of the main door opening drew Elena's attention. Eleanor entered, carrying a legal-sized envelope. "Ah, there you are," she said, slightly out of breath. "I've just come from a meeting with Mr. Harmon." Mr. Harmon, David's attorney and the executor of his estate, had become a regular presence in their lives over the past months, helping Elena navigate the complicated legal aspects of Grace's inheritance. "Is everything all right?" Elena asked, noting Eleanor's unusually heightened color. "More than all right." Eleanor placed the envelope on the coffee table. Harmon's team found something in David's storage unit downtown. A safety deposit box key was hidden in an old textbook. She gestured to the envelope. Inside the box were letters. Letters David wrote to you but never sent. Elena stared at the envelope. "To me, when? The dates span his last year. The final one was written 3 days before he died." Eleanor hesitated. "I haven't read them. Harmon delivered them sealed." Elena's hand hovered over the envelope, not quite touching it. 6 months ago, she might have torn it open immediately, desperate for any connection to David. Now, she felt a strange reluctance. "I'll read them later," she decided, after Grace's appointment. Eleanor nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Speaking of which, we should leave in about 20 minutes. Will Grace be ready?" "She's just finishing her flower project. I'll help her get dressed." As Elena turned toward Grace's room, Eleanor stopped her with a gentle hand on her arm. "There's something else we should discuss. Something I've been considering for some time." The seriousness in Eleanor's tone gave Elena pause. "What is it?" "You've been living here for 6 months now. The arrangement has worked well for Grace's recovery, but we've overstayed our welcome." Elena finished for her, a knot forming in her stomach. She had known this conversation would come eventually. "I've been looking at apartments closer to the hospital. We can be out by the end of the month." "No, that's not..." Eleanor shook her head in frustration. "I'm handling this poorly. What I'm trying to say is that I hope you'll consider making this arrangement permanent." Elena blinked in surprise. "Permanent? This house is too large for one person. It always has been." Eleanor gestured around them. "Since you and Grace arrived, it's finally begun to feel like a home again. Grace's laughter in the hallways, your dinner conversations, even the muddy footprints and crayon marks." She smiled faintly. "I've grown accustomed to having a family again." "Eleanor, I don't know what to say. You don't have to answer now, but please consider it." Eleanor's usual composure faltered slightly. "I've lost too many people I love, having you and Grace here. It's given me a purpose beyond my foundation work. And I'd like to think I've been of some help to you both as well." Before Elena could respond, Grace bounded into the room, now dressed in a neat blue dress with her hair partially tamed. "I'm ready for my checkup," she announced. "Are we going now?" The moment for conversation passed as they gathered their things and headed to the hospital. The appointment itself was routine. Another set of encouraging test results. Another milestone in Grace's recovery charted and celebrated. Afterward, as they walked through the hospital's main lobby, Elena noticed a young woman struggling with a stack of paperwork, a toddler pulling at her leg, while an infant wailed in a carrier at her feet. The woman's face showed the unmistakable blend of exhaustion and fear that Elena recognized intimately, the look of a mother fighting a healthcare system not designed for those without means. Without thinking, Elena approached her. "Can I help you with those forms?" The woman looked up, startled, then relieved. "Would you? I'm trying to get my son registered for testing, but they need all these documents filled out, and with the baby crying." "I understand completely," Elena said, taking the clipboard. "I've been there." 20 minutes later, having helped the woman navigate the Byzantine paperwork and directed her to resources she might qualify for, Elena rejoined Eleanor and Grace, who were waiting in the hospital cafe. "That was kind of you," Eleanor observed, pushing a cup of tea toward Elena. "She reminded me of myself a few years ago," Elena said, watching the woman and her children board the elevator. Terrified about her child's heart condition, overwhelmed by the system, trying to handle everything alone, Eleanor followed her gaze thoughtfully. There must be many mothers like her. Many families without the resources Grace has been fortunate enough to access. Hundreds, Elena confirmed, just in this hospital system alone. The drive back to the Lancaster estate was quiet, each woman lost in her own thoughts. As they pulled through the wrought iron gates, Elena made a decision. "Eleanor," she said as they entered the house, "about what you said earlier, about making our arrangement permanent." Eleanor paused in the foyer, her expression carefully neutral. "Yes, I'd like to accept, but with a condition. Name it. I want to use part of David's trust to establish a foundation, something to help families navigating pediatric cardiac care without resources, assistance with paperwork, accommodation during hospital stays, childcare during appointments, transportation, all the practical things that become overwhelming barriers." Eleanor's eyes lit with interest. "An adjunct to the Medical Research Foundation." "Exactly. The Lancaster Foundation focuses on finding cures and treatments. This would focus on helping families access those treatments, on easing their journey." Elena took a deep breath. "And I'd like to run it." "You'd be perfect for it," Eleanor said without hesitation. "You understand what these families need in a way medical professionals often don't. I'd need to learn a lot. About nonprofits, about administration. We can arrange that. Courses, mentorship, whatever you need." Grace, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "Does this mean we're staying here forever? This is our home now." Elena knelt to Grace's level, taking her small hands. "Would you like that, sweetie, to live here with Grandma Eleanor?" Grace nodded emphatically. "I love it here, and Grandma Eleanor needs us. She told me she gets lonely when we go out without her." Eleanor made a small sound of surprise, then covered it with a cough. "Well, that's settled then," she said briskly, but her eyes shone with emotion. "I'll have Harmon draw up the necessary paperwork for the foundation first thing tomorrow." Later that evening, after Grace had been tucked in, Elena finally opened the envelope containing David's letters. There were 12 in all, each addressed simply to Elena, each sealed individually. She opened the first one, dated nearly a year after his diagnosis, and began to read. His handwriting was stronger than in the later journal entries, his thoughts more coherent. "Elena," it began, "I don't know if you'll ever read these words, but I need to write them anyway, to confess, to explain, to beg forgiveness for the choice I made." Elena read until the words blurred with her tears, then carefully refolded the letter. There would be time for the others, time to process the words David had wanted her to hear, the explanations he'd longed to give. For now, it was enough to know that he had never stopped loving her, that his final thoughts had included her and the child he never knew. It was enough to recognize that his flawed choice, made from fear and love in equal measure, had ultimately led them here, to healing, to family, to purpose. Tomorrow, she would begin planning the new foundation. Tomorrow, she would take another step into this unexpected life that had emerged from tragedy. Tonight, she would simply be grateful for second chances, for Grace, for herself, and even for David, whose legacy would now help other families facing the battle they had won. "Make a wish, Grace," 13 candles flickered on a chocolate cake decorated with butterflies, Grace's explicit request for her 13th birthday. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath that came easily to her now healthy lungs, and blew out all the candles in one go. The small gathering around the dining table erupted in applause. 7 years had passed since the surgery that had saved her life. 7 years of birthdays celebrated in the Lancaster mansion that had become their home. 7 years of watching Grace grow from a fragile child into a confident young teenager with David's curls and Eleanor's poise. Elena glanced around the table at the faces of those who had gathered to celebrate. Dr. Abernathy, who had become more friend than physician over the years. Mrs. Chen, Grace's piano teacher who had patiently worked with her as her stamina improved. Several of Grace's school friends, giggly and excited at being invited to the big mansion on the hill. And Eleanor, now 61, her silver hair elegantly styled, but her face softer than it had been when they first met, creased with laugh lines that hadn't been there before. "Time for presents," called one of Grace's friends. The gifts were opened with appropriate teenage enthusiasm. Books, art supplies, a telescope from Eleanor, for proper scientific observation, she explained, and from Elena, a locket containing a small photo of David. "So I can always keep Dad close," Grace said softly, as she fastened it around her neck. Later, as the party wound down and the last guest departed, the 3 Lancaster women, as they had come to think of themselves, gathered in the garden. The early summer evening was warm, fireflies beginning to dance over the carefully tended flower beds that Grace and Eleanor maintained together. "Hard to believe it's been 7 years today," Elena said. Sinking into a garden chair, Eleanor nodded, her eyes on Grace, who was setting up her new telescope on the lawn. 7 years since the surgery. 7 years of watching her grow stronger instead of weaker. She reached over to squeeze Elena's hand. 7 years of family. The word still sometimes caught Elena by surprise. Family, such a simple concept, yet one that had eluded her for so much of her life. Now it surrounded her. Not just Grace and Eleanor, but the extended circle of people they had gathered. The staff at the Hart Foundation who had become friends, the families they had helped, the medical team that continued to monitor Grace's progress. The foundation board approved the expansion, Elena said. "We'll be opening the new family accommodation center at Memorial next month." "That's wonderful news," Eleanor beamed with pride. "From 6 families to 20, David would be so proud of what you've accomplished." The Hart Foundation, as it was now known, had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What had begun as Elena's small idea to help families navigate pediatric cardiac care had expanded into a comprehensive support system with branches at 3 hospitals across Georgia. Elena now led a staff of 20, many of them parents who had once been recipients of the foundation's services themselves. "I couldn't have done it without your guidance," Elena said honestly. "Or your connections." Eleanor waved away the gratitude. "Connections are worthless without someone who knows what to do with them. You built something remarkable, Elena, something that transforms lives every day." "Mom, Grandma," Grace called from across the lawn. "Come look, you can see Jupiter's moons." They joined her at the telescope, taking turns peering through the eyepiece at the tiny dots of light orbiting the distant planet. Grace's enthusiasm for astronomy had developed alongside her passion for biology. A child who had spent so much time confined by illness, now fascinated by the vastness of space and the complexities of living things. "Ms. Patterson says I should consider applying for the summer science program at Georgia Tech next year," Grace said as they made their way back inside. "She thinks my research on cardiac tissue regeneration has potential." Elena exchanged a glance with Eleanor. At 13, Grace's science fair project had already advanced to state finals, an investigation into regenerative medicine inspired by her own medical history. "If that's what you want to pursue, we'll support you," Eleanor said, "though I admit I'm biased toward medical research." "Because of the Lancaster Foundation?" Grace asked. "Because of you," Eleanor corrected gently. "Because of what we almost lost and what we gained." Inside the house, they settled in the family room that had once been Eleanor's formal parlor, on the mantel. Alongside elegant silver-framed Lancaster ancestors, stood photographs marking their journey together. Grace in her hospital bed post-surgery, her first day back at school, Elena at the ribbon cutting of the first Hart Foundation Family Center, the 3 of them on vacation in the Outer Banks, Grace receiving her science award. And in the center, given pride of place, was David's photograph, no longer bearing a mourning ribbon, but included as an integral part of their shared story. "I have something for you both," Eleanor said, retrieving an envelope from her desk. "I was going to wait, but it seems fitting today." She handed the envelope to Elena, who opened it to find legal documents. She scanned them, her eyes widening. "Eleanor, this is the paperwork to legally change Grace's name to Grace Hart Lancaster," Eleanor confirmed. "Only if you both agree, of course. I've felt for some time that she should carry her father's name as well as yours, that our family should be recognized in name as it is in reality." Grace moved to read over Elena's shoulder. "Hart Lancaster," she said, testing the sound of it. "I like it. It's who I am. Both sides of my family." Elena looked up at Eleanor, seeing the vulnerability beneath the older woman's composed expression. This meant more than just a name change. It was Eleanor's way of solidifying their bond, of ensuring that even after she was gone, the connection between them would endure. "I think it's perfect," Elena said softly. Eleanor's relief was visible. "There's something else." She reached into her desk again and withdrew a small box. "This was meant to be for your 16th birthday. Grace, but I think tonight is the right moment." Grace opened the box to find a delicate sapphire ring. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It was your grandfather's gift to me when David was born," Eleanor explained. "It's a Lancaster tradition, a piece of family jewelry to welcome a new generation. But I'm not new," Grace pointed out as she slipped the ring onto her finger. "I've been here for 13 years, but we've only known you for 7, Eleanor said. 7 years that have been the greatest gift of my life." Grace impulsively hugged her grandmother, an action that still occasionally caught Eleanor by surprise, though she had grown far more comfortable with physical affection since Grace had entered her life. Later, after Grace had gone to bed, Elena and Eleanor sat on the terrace with glasses of wine, as had become their evening ritual over the years. "I read the last of David's letters yesterday," Elena said quietly. Eleanor looked surprised. "After all this time, I thought you'd finished them years ago." Elena shook her head. "I've been reading them slowly, one each year, on the anniversary of his death. Yesterday was the final one." "What did it say?" Eleanor asked, then quickly added, "If you don't mind sharing, he wrote about hoping that I would find happiness again, that I would find someone who could be there for me in all the ways he couldn't be." Elena smiled faintly. "He wanted me to know that whatever life I built would have his blessing. Have you ever considered it?" Eleanor asked carefully. "Finding someone new." "Sometimes," Elena admitted. "There have been opportunities over the years, but somehow it never felt right." She looked out over the garden, silvered by moonlight. "The truth is, I already found what David hoped for me. Not a romantic partner, but a family, a home, purpose, the things that matter most." Eleanor nodded, understanding in her eyes. "We've all found healing here, haven't we? You, me, Grace. And David too, in a way," Elena added. "His legacy lives on, not just in Grace, but in every family the foundations help." They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies dance over the garden David had never seen, in the home that had been transformed by the daughter he had never known. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and joys. Foundation work for Elena, a board meeting for Eleanor, school and friends and teenage concerns for Grace. The ordinary rhythm of a family's life, made extraordinary by the journey that had brought them together. "To David," Eleanor said, raising her glass in the moonlight, "who gave us the greatest gift even in his absence." "To David," Elena echoed, touching her glass to Eleanor's, "and to the hearts he helped heal." In her bedroom upstairs, Grace Lancaster Hart slept peacefully, her heartbeat strong and steady, the repaired muscle working as it should. On her nightstand sat Dr. Brewster, the teddy bear doctor now retired from active practice but still keeping watch, alongside the photograph of the father whose genes she carried and whose sacrifice had ultimately brought her family together. 3 women connected by one man's heart, both the organ that had failed him and the love that had outlasted his too short life.